Hello and good evening. Wow, what a crowd. And of course, with us being academics, Academic 15 is the only thing we deserve, right? So let's wait a minute until the last ones will find their seats. Our wonderful student volunteers are navigating the rest of the crowd up to the balconies. Hopefully, great view up there. I am so happy to see all the happy faces here and having you all in this very festive hall and in one of the very few places we could all fit in. I hope you enjoy it and you will have more opportunities to enjoy it throughout the evening. I will quickly introduce what is ahead of us. And before I do that, I would like to thank to all our partners, especially the Municipality of Prague, whose very venue this is, and who kindly supported us to host you all here in this wonderful space. We will start with some welcoming words. We will have a wonderful keynote conversation of Georgi Gospodinov together with Professor Alison Landsberg. And we will then all congratulate the winner of the first book award this year in a short conversation between the winner and inaugurated by the person who was responsible for having many of you read those books which were nominated, and many of them deserve, or all of them deserve, our attention. But there is only one winner, and that winner will be here with us today. Before starting with the welcome speeches, I believe you would like to make memories because it's in the very word of and very name of our association. As the stickers say, more than me, memory, and for that, there is a Wi-Fi accessible for all of you. You can log in under Congress and you use the password CUNI2025. You are also free to photograph in this very hall if you wish. With that, I would like to invite the triumvirate of the Memory Studies Association directors, Professor Wolfgang Steiner, Professor Joanna Wawrzyniak, and Professor Anne Regni. Please.
Welcome, everybody. The fact that the three of us, your current co-presidents representing different fields and different countries, are standing here together is already a message. It reflects the collaborative spirit of the Memory Studies Association, a way of doing things we have learned from our founding co-presidents, Jeffrey Olig, Aline Sierp, and Jenny Wistenberg, and keep learning it from you all. The study of memory, as all of you know, is never a solo endeavor. Even when we don't agree on what memory is, we still need one another to make sense of it. Some of us see memory as culture, others as politics. Some focus on trauma, others on resistance or reconciliation. For some, it's a matter of archives and monuments. For others, of bodies, silences, and ghosts. We do not all study the same thing, nor the same process, as Jeff Olich would say. Memory studies has never been about tidy answers, but we meet in a common space, a field that welcomes complexity, contradiction, and debate. It's a field built on a dialogue, sometimes messy, sometimes slow, but in progress, thanks to all of you who sustain it through ongoing research and a shared commitment. And that, I think, is what gives us energy and purpose. So tonight, let's celebrate that spirit, the many ways we remember, and the many ways we work together to understand how remembering works. Over to you, Wolf.
Yes, I think I've seen the MSA spirit in action on many occasions. I've been to all annual conferences, and I have been to many, many administrative meetings. I think in many ways we practice what we preach quite successfully. As Joanna pointed out, a difference of opinion about memory is an asset rather than a liability. I think we are good at learning from each other and listening to each other. I think we do this across different age groups. I think we're very aware of the precariousness of academic employment, very aware of the politicization, and that's one of the reasons why we systematically support junior scholars. I think we're also quite good at listening to each other across vast geographical and cultural spaces. We come from very, very different locations. And in that case, listening to each other and learning from each other entails visiting each other. We do a lot of that visiting virtually, as we should, but it's also important that we visit each other physically. I think it makes a difference that we meet in Amsterdam and Prague, as well as Lima and Buenos Aires. And I hope we can continue that pattern. Maybe last but not least, I think we have successfully struggled against a dominant trend of our time. In many of the places we come from, many of the institutions we come from, differences of opinion, difference of political opinion have caused a breakdown of meaningful dialogue. I don't think that's true for us, but in the future we need to protect that platform. We need to think about the limits of speech, the limits also of political speech, because there are limits. And so I would hope that our process of listening to each other, learning from each other, is always also a process of thinking about the ethical foundations of our work. Over to you.
Last and definitely the smallest. I'm the newest to this. Dear Memory Studies Association, our MSA is already an international organization, and we're working hard to make it even more global. One way to do this is to welcome ever more members from across the world. And luckily this is happening, though there's still a long way to go. Another way to create a global dialogue is through our conferences. Wolf has already referred to this. At this year's conference, we are in the very heart of Europe, in this wonderful Smetana Hall, whose visuals and whose status as memory site serves as a reminder of the importance of memory in the making of nation states. Understanding the interplay between memory and nationalism in locally specific contexts remains an important part of the work we do. But so too is understanding similarities and differences across the regions of the world. As MSA members, we share a common purpose in wanting to find out how memories operate between groups and thereby help to create solidarities and alliances outside the framework of nation states. And at the present time, this is more urgent than ever. Memory travels across borders, as Astrid Earle, our keynote speaker, once put it, and so does the MSA. If today we are exchanging ideas in the heart of Europe, we were in Lima, Peru around this time last year, and next year we are planning to be in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and we look forward to welcome you there in July 2026 at the other end of the world, with the memory of this amazing conference in Prague still fresh in your memory. Thank you. Enjoy the evening.
Many thanks to your kind words. And even more so, and I believe I speak for all the local organizational team and for all our community, thank you for supporting us in the process of preparing MSA Prague 2025. With that, I would like to invite Professor Juliane Thoman, the head of the program committee, to speak on its behalf.
Thank you so much, Katarzyna. Yeah, as you've already said, over the past few months, I've had the pleasure to chair the program committee of this year's conference. And I would like to take the opportunity now to share some reflections on what has become an extraordinary, diverse, rich, and dense conference lineup. So this year's theme, Beyond Crisis, it clearly resonated with the research interest of a wide range of memory scholars and practitioners across the globe. It also speaks to the pressing and unsettling global context we find ourselves in today. So both of these elements, and of course along with our dynamic and historically charged host city Prague, they have contributed to an unprecedented response to our call for papers. In fact, never before in the history of the Memory Studies Association we have received such a volume of submissions, around 1,500 proposals for individual papers and panels. Putting this together into a program would have not been manageable without the remarkable work of our 90 reviewers, whose dedication made it possible to evaluate all submissions thoughtfully and fairly. A heartfelt thank you to each and every one of them. I also want to acknowledge the members of the program committee who worked tirelessly to organize individual submissions into coherent and hopefully stimulating panels. They are sitting here in the second row. And we really do hope that all these panels will inspire meaningful conversations and spark new ideas throughout this week. Organizing an event of this scale inevitably involves a flood of emails, an army of spreadsheets, and countless shared documents. On a practical note, fitting such a dense schedule of panels, of workshops, of cultural events into just a few days requires careful coordination and time management. And I would especially like to thank Róża Kochanowska for keeping up with all this management work. And I would also like to especially thank those of you presenting in our morning sessions. Sharing your insights at 8:30 a.m. is not a small feat, particularly when the program continues well into the evening as today. So the intensity of the program reflects a shared need to come together, to engage, and to reflect on our work as a community, as the Memory Studies community. So I look forward to conversations ahead, and I wish you all an inspiring and rewarding rest of the conference and just a very nice evening.
When we were sitting all together as the program committee, one day when we were going through all the amazing applications, we were thinking, should we really do just a week of memory studies conference, or should we continue with a month of memory studies? We all know what is in our power and what we can do, and I think we will stick to the week, at least for now. all we are doing as scholars resonates during the conference in many shapes, be it panels or papers or workshops or roundtables or book discussions. But what we all need to do as well is publishing. And once we get there, we are looking for a good home for our book. And we are very proud that out of all the publishing houses represented here, De Gruyter partnered this conference, and it also kindly supported the keynote speaker and the keynote presentation at this very evening. I would like to welcome Stella Dietrich, representative of De Gruyter. Stella, please.
Hello, everyone. As Katarzyna just said, my name is Stella Dietrich, and I'm here today representing De Gruyter Brill, who is proud to sponsor tonight's keynote lecture for the first time. It is wonderful to be here and also to see so many authors and editors that we've worked with in the last years for the first time in person. And yeah, I'll try to keep this introduction brief. De Gruyter is one of Europe's most prolific independent scholarly presses with over 270 years of publishing experience in humanities and social sciences. Our memory studies list is one of the main pillars of our humanities program. And since De Gruyter and Brill joined forces last year, we now carry 4 dedicated peer-reviewed memory studies series. That is memory, media and cultural memory, Medien und kulturelle Erinnerung, museums and narrative, mobilizing memories, as well as Brill's handbook series in memory studies and the journal Memory Studies Review. Our authors publish in English and German, but also in Spanish, French, and Italian, among other languages. But what they all have in common is commitment to enriching the conversation about the ways in which we remember, honor, and learn from the past. Our mission to make research and memory studies and related fields available and accessible is more important than ever. In the face of the current political climate and the pressures on institutional funding threatening research in the humanities more broadly, and especially on such contentious, difficult subject matters as is often the territory of memory studies, we believe that academic publishing has an important role to play in supporting researchers. Therefore, De Gruyter Brill partnered up with the MSA last year in the hope that we can give back to our community of authors and editors. By sponsoring events such as this one, by offering a platform for early career researchers in memory studies through our fellowship scheme, and by giving MSA members an exclusive discount on some of our most recent titles in memory studies, we are proud to support and be a part of this diverse, thriving, and thoughtful community, and to help further its work in any way we can. My colleagues and I look forward to seeing many of you at the book exhibition in the Faculty of Arts for the next couple of days. And we would also like to thank the organizers of this wonderful conference. And now, without further ado, I would like to hand over to tonight's keynote speaker, Yo-Yo Gospodinov and Professor Alison Landsberg. Please give them a warm round of applause. Thank you.
Please welcome again Georgi Gospodinov in conversation with Professor Alison Landsberg.
Hello, everyone. I'm Allison Landsberg. I'm a professor of history and cultural studies at George Mason University in the United States. It's an honor to be in discussion this evening with the brilliant Georgi Gospodinov. Gospodinov is a Bulgarian poet, writer, and playwright. But as you'll soon understand, he's also a philosopher and a theorist of memory. He's the author of 4 novels, which together have garnered 6 major awards. Natural Novel was published in 1999, The Physics of Sorrow in 2012, Time Shelter in 2020, and most recently, in 2024, Death and the Gardener, which was dedicated to his father. Of particular interest to this group is his wildly imaginative novel, Time Shelter, which won one of the most distinguished European awards, the Strega European Prize in 2021. In 2023, Time Shelter was translated into English by Angela Rodel and won the International Booker Prize. Since then, Time Shelter has become an international sensation, published in more than 35 languages. It's a meditation on memory and memory loss and their implications at the individual and national levels. You'll hear much more about Time Shelter this evening. In addition to these acclaimed novels, Gospodinov is the author of 4 books of short stories, 2 plays, DJ, an abbreviation of Don Juan, and The Apocalypse Comes at 6, both of which won national awards for Best Dramatic Text of the Year, a graphic novel, The Eternal Fly, and a collection of essays entitled The Invisible Crises. Blind Vasya, a short animated film based on his story of the same name, directed by Theodore Ushev, was an Academy Award nominee in 2017, and his recent book of poetry, Things We Don't Talk About, won Le Prix Mallarmé in France. Gospodinov was awarded a number of fellowships at the Coleman Center, at the New York Public Library, the Harriman Institute at Columbia University, and the Wissenschaftskolleg in Berlin. He's also been inducted as a member of the Royal Society of Literature in the UK. Incredibly, Gospodinov finds time to hold a university position as well. He's associate professor at the Institute for Literature at Sofia University, where he teaches creative writing, media, and literature courses. Without further ado, we'll move into our discussion. Thank you. So let's start with the beginning, with childhood. You began writing as a very young person. Do you remember how you started writing?
Yeah, I still remember this. Actually, it was exactly 49 years ago. I had a nightmare. Everything starts with the fear. I had a nightmare. I was 6, 7 years old. I used to live with my grandparents. It was typical for my generation. We spent a lot of time with our grandparents. Our parents were busy and so on. They were in the cities. And I had this repetitive nightmare. And I tried to tell it to my grandmother, but she stopped me because we believe that you shouldn't tell your nightmares because they will become alive. She said in a very poetic way, she said they will fill up with blood. So I didn't tell her this nightmare, but I continued to have it. And then I decided to write down it. And I wrote with a very ugly letters, and 2 miracles happened there. First, I never ever had this nightmare again. And the second, I still remember it. You could check me. If you ask me, at the end of the conversation, I will tell this nightmare. So this is, and I realized that there is something, I don't know, there is a miracle in the writing. So I continue to write some small, stupid poems and so on. But why childhood was so important? Because I had this, my grandparents, my grandmother especially, with her stories, with her storytelling. I think that if you ask me which are the writers that influenced me and they shaped me as a writer, I would mention two names, Borges and my grandmother. And the way she tells stories was really important to me because, you know, our grandparents were from the time before the Second World War. I mean, before the communism in Bulgaria as well. So my grandmother told stories like Marquez, let's say. In this magical realism, she told us about our neighbor who had the small wings here, and he had a superpower. And with my brother, we always try to see him when he dressed up his shirt. And that's why was the storytelling that she had. But also another important thing with the childhood was that, you know that scientists had this kind of research that from year 7 to year 12, your empathy window is very open. And after that, growing old, we start close slowly this window. So this time of childhood is a, what to say, everlasting source, in a way, an inspiration and so on. That was the beginning.
So it seems in both of those anecdotes that writing has a kind of magical power. On the one hand, it has the capacity to make you, to cure your nightmare, right? You've written it down and you've sort of freed yourself from it. But there's also a way in which your grandmother's words about not saying it suggests a kind of magical power to bring something into the world, right? And so, I mean, how do you what kind of power do you see in the act of writing?
Actually, without knowing about Shahrazad, my grandmother used the same power of storytelling. If I can summarize the superpowers of storytelling, of literature, I could say, I could count a few of them. One is to postpone the end. We know this clearly from Shahrazad. You know, she tells one story every night and she gained one more day. So this is the way of to postpone the end, actually. Okay. When I was a kid, I always pick up from the library only books written in first person. Because in the books written in first person, you will never see the sentence, I died. I mean, the character is still alive till the last pages. And this is also connected with the Shahrazad. When you tell your stories, you are still alive. Right. And this is one of the things. Another thing is that actually storytelling gives consolation. We know this very well. Everybody knows this because when you tell stories every night to your kids, you put the world in the order. And the consolation is actually very old genre. It's old Roman genre. We know this Seneca's piece on the consolation, dedicated to her mother Salvia, I think. And this is another superpower of the storytelling. Of course, the third superpower is connected with what are you doing here, what you are doing. It's creating memory. Actually, it's what to say. It works in two ways. You telling stories, you create a memory, but without memory, you cannot tell stories, of course. Right. So this is another very important superpower of storytelling, and many others. One of them is one of the superpowers is to give meaning of the life, because I really believe it could be a bit paradoxical, but I believe that the things that happen to us are completed only when we put them into the stories. Without those stories about these things, they are not completed.
Right. So you give them order. Yeah. Your very brief memoir, The Story Smuggler, is centered around your childhood writing. And calling this a story smuggler suggests that writing was an act of resistance to a certain extent. You're smuggling, right? Mm-hmm. And so, what were you resisting? What was the resistance about?
As I said, why we are telling stories? Because to add some meaning to the trivial things. What I like in the writing, and in my writing I try to do it, is to combine these everyday trivial things that happen to us, to combine them with the sublime. I mean, to start with the small thing and to go to the sublime and then to go back to the small thing. This movement is very important. What kind of resistance? For me, when I started to write seriously, it was till Bulgaria was before 1989, so it was social realism in literature. Mm-hmm. It was a monumental way of storytelling. Mm-hmm. What I tried to put in my books is this anti-monumental things, anti-monumental way of storytelling. In a way, even anti-anthropocentric, let's say. And that's why I started to write short stories about the people who are never on the first pages of the newspapers, the people who are on the backside of the moon, and also the domestic fly is a very important character in my books, because the domestic fly is really anti-monumental thing. Right. And if we try to explain some things, the world, through the point of view of domestic fly, we should have another perspective to our lives, to our issues, and so on. So this is also a kind of resistance. And literature was very, in the societies like Bulgarian during the communism, in totalitarian societies, literature actually was very, very important. There is a great poet, Polish poet, Zbigniew Herbert. He had a poem about the power of the taste. You should look, maybe you know, of course, this poem, but he described this, that to resist, we didn't need a strong superpower or braveness or something like this. It was a question of taste. It was a question of taste, to put some irony, to leave their stupid gatherings and so on and so on. For me, writing creates this is another superpower, the resistance of the taste. And especially in times like ours, this is very important, to recognize the kitsch of the nationalism, to recognize the populism. I think writing could help with this.
And I think, you know, you say that your work is has a kind of anti-monumentalism to it, and I think this is a very important strain in memory studies as well, that, you know, the sort of imposition of large, monumental memory narratives, right, have historically been very coercive, and there's been a lot of always attempts to sort of counter that, right? And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your own relationship to memory, which obviously figures very prominently in your work. What led you to memory? What's your fascination with memory?
Actually, from the first memory about my first nightmare, I continued to write about the memory in a way, because, you know, you couldn't tell story without memory. That's why it's important for me. Also, memory is this tiny red line. Without it, the line between the past and the present will disappear. And this is very important to keep this line. There is, in this novel Time Shelter, I wrote about more about this. And as Gaustin, the main character of the novel, said, less memory, more past. Or he said also, I tell stories to keep the past into the past. Because, you know, memory, why memory is important? It's not important only because of the past. When we are losing our memory, we don't lose only the past, we lose the future. Because when you have Alzheimer, I just wrote about a lot about the Alzheimer. When you have this dementia or Alzheimer, literally, you're losing the future. You cannot make your plans about the future. So without memory, we don't have the past, we don't have present, we don't have future. And there is this beautiful title, The Past is a Foreign Country by Lowenthal.
Yes.
But actually, I argue with this in the novel because for the people who are losing memory, the past is not a foreign culture. The past is their homeland. The future is the foreign culture.
Right.
And in a way, we are living now in the situation, in the minute, where we are facing the deficit of the future. We are afraid of the future, of course. Mm-hmm. We don't believe in the future.
Yeah.
If you ask me, would you like to know what will happen after 2 years or after 10 years? I will be a bit afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we are going back to the caves of the past. We make our shelters into the past, which is also a wrong strategy. So now the memory is a very important political question, because the populists were taken memory as a kind of weapon, the past as a kind of weapon, the nostalgia. As a writer, as a person, I'm a quite nostalgic person. The Blind Vaisha that you mentioned, the short story, is about the woman who could see with the left eye only in the past, with the right eye only into the future, and she is blind for the present. So she could see this place where we are 200 years ago, when it doesn't exist, and 200 years in the future, which is maybe will be completely different. But she's blind for the present. And so I believe I'm a nostalgic person. Mm-hmm. And that's why this book was Time Shelter was very difficult for me, because it's a book against this nostalgia.
Yes.
Against the abusing of this nostalgia. And yeah, we can talk a lot about nostalgia, but you know, nostalgia means algus to the nostos. I mean, pain to the place where we are not. But what we are facing now, I think, is more or less kind of chronostalgia. We don't have this algus to the places anymore. We have this algus to the different times, to the different periods. And this could be also dangerous, because they promise us, when they promise us a bright past, because they promise us a bright past, the populists, to be bright again, great again, and so on, actually it's quite an empty check.
Probably not everybody in this room has read Time Shelter, so could you tell the room a little bit about it? I'll just say, I'll read a sentence in which he describes what a time shelter is. He writes, "The point of the experiment was to create a protected past or protected time, a time shelter. We wanted to open a window into time and let the sick live there along with their loved ones."
Yeah, it's about the clinics of the past that Gaustin created in the book. Actually, in the book, the main character, Gaustin, created this kind of clinics of the past in which every floor is dedicated to the different decades. Like we have a floor of 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. And when we are losing our memory, we go to these floors. The idea was to have a sync between your internal time and your external time. I mean, when you're living in your 1960s, you should feel everything. You should be surrounded from the smells of 1960s, the music of 1960s, the movies of 1960s, and so on and so on. This was the idea, and it was a good idea. We are going to this. There are some clinics of the past in United States, especially, and also. But the idea of Gaustin was to expand this idea and to have cities of the past, to have countries of the past. And I will not spoil the second part of the novel, but they started to make referendums of the past in different European countries to choose the happiest decade where they could live. So this was the idea, and and when you try to realize this idea, you will see that it doesn't work, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it could be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, one of the many things that was so interesting for me about Time Shelter was the tension between the idea of what might be good for the individual to be able to live peacefully in, you know, in a past decade, and what might be good for a nation. And clearly, it's very politically reactionary to choose to live in the past.
Absolutely, because what's the trap with this? When they promise us good past or great past, and when you try to live in the past, the trap is that your personal time is irreversible, but the political time is reversible. You never been again 20 years old, but the democratic country could go back to the totalitarian ones. So the political time is reversible, and this is the dangerous thing. And about the private and the collective going back to the past, I like this cover, British cover of the book, because you could see the different rooms of the past. And I believe it's quite normal to go back to these rooms every day. We did it every day. But when somebody tried to, to force a nation, a society to go back to the invented past, then the things could go dangerous. So I believe in this personal past and the personal memory, but I'm quite suspicious to the forced collective past.
I think that the novel does a wonderful job of conveying that, the extreme problems with that. You write in this novel, the past, just like fire, cannot be looked directly in the eye.
It's a quotation from the...
Yes, yeah. What do you...
I couldn't tell it better or couldn't expand this, but there is this small chapter in the novel about the fire of the memory, because when the memory is burning, when you have this fire of the memory, I mean, the beast of the past keep distance from you. When this fire goes down, then the beasts come to you. This is again about the red line, which we should keep between the past and the present.
Right. And you say, I mean, and you wonder about can the past be made into anything? I think that's quite interesting too. You say at one point, does the past disintegrate, or does it remain practically unchanged like plastic bags, slowly and deeply poisoning everything around itself? Shouldn't there be factories for recycling the past somewhere? Can you make anything else out of the past beside the past? Could it be recycled in reverse into some kind of future, albeit secondhand?
Okay, can I see this
quotation? Sure, yeah.
You know, it's a book about Alzheimer's, so I can forget some. Yeah.
There are so many incredibly provocative sentences. I have the opportunity to ask the author about them.
yeah, is the question, what happened with our past? Actually, what happened with the things when they went away? How the past could be recycled, or it stay like the nylon bags and so on.
I think we all wonder what can be made of the past. I mean, and I think this is a question that memory scholars take up all of the time. I mean, can anything be made of the past other than the past? Can the past be made useful for the future, or is this a trap that we fall into?
Yeah. You know, there is this something specific for the past. In the past, you could, the time is never goes in one direction. And this is very important. Mm-hmm. Also, you know that the Aymara people, there's a people from Andes, yes. Mm-hmm. They had quite different idea for the past and the future. When they talk about the past, they show in front of them like this. The past is there because we could see it. It always happened and it's in front of our eyes. But the future is behind us. We don't know about the future. The future just will catch us in a way.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about other forms of memory that come up in your writing. In The Story Smuggler, you describe memories that people in Bulgaria had of things they had never experienced. And you talk about the fact that people collected mementos of places they'd never been, proof of their existence. And I was wondering if you could explain to us, you write that that's what we were, empty bottles and cigarette boxes of memories from unvisited places. It was all we could do, constantly invent the world denied to us.
Yeah, it's a topic that appeared in all of my books and much more in The Story Smuggler and The Physics of Sorrow. So we will talk a bit about the physics of sorrow after that, but for me it's very important to talk about the things that never happened. The unhappened things, they shape us even more than the things that happened in a way. In Bulgaria, we have a lot of unhappened things. My mother and father never visited Prague or Paris or Rome, but they loved these cities. They imagined these cities and they loved them much more than I loved them after visiting them. I mean, not Prague, of course, but this is very important, to talk about the things that never happened and how important they are, and how we have our memory about the things that never happened, I think is much more stronger than our memory about the things that happened. Mm-hmm. And we could think about this. Also, in Bulgaria, we have this, you know, we were not allowed to travel abroad to the Western world before 1989. And there is a nice sentence by Montaigne. Montaigne said, I've never had the curiosity to visit India, but if somebody forbid me to visit India, I will be the unhappiest person in the world. So you could imagine, we used to live in the world when you just could imagine the abroad. Abroad for us as kids was a different country. The country abroad, because everybody said it was Chuzbina in Bulgaria, Chuzbina. And also when some international truck driver from Bulgaria visited France or Italy or this, and usually he brings back some souvenirs. And this is also a very interesting topic about the souvenirs, about these souvenirs were very important. They used to stay in our tables, like, let's say like the Eiffel Tower with thermometer. So people, could you imagine, you're sitting there, you have this Eiffel Tower with the thermometer, but you never visited the real Eiffel Tower. So there was a joke, an anecdote about Bulgarian who, when he visited for the first time Paris, he walked around the real Eiffel Tower looking for the thermometer. So, yeah.
I think it points to the invented quality of memory in general, right? I mean, that one can have memories of something they didn't actually experience. I think that tells us a lot about the imaginative and creative dimension of memory writ large.
Yeah. You know, I will say something personal. Because my writing is very personal in a way. I'm using some things that really happened and so on. And now when I read my books, I don't believe that this really happened to me. You know, all of us, we know that writing, and this is the right way, actually is a contribution to the memory. But in my case, I think that writing is also a kind of stealer of the memory, stealing from my memory, because you couldn't keep this red line between what happened and what I narrated. And this is very, very interesting. You just blur this border between what happened and when you narrate it, but that's the very interesting problem. When something that really happened is narrated, it goes through the language. I think it's more on the side of the fiction than on the side of the really happened things.
That's what I was suggesting, that there's a kind of creative, imaginative dimension to memory always, in every...
But also when you read a book, sometimes I have a memory, which memory that I read from the book. Like I'm smoking a very hard cigarette, gitan, drinking, how was this grappa with the Erich Maria Remarque novels? So Calvados, of course, book about memory. Calvados. So I have this memory that I felt this, and this is a question of feeling. If you feel something when you remind your personal memories, or if you feel the same thing when you read a novel, it doesn't matter.
This is kind of what I argue in prosthetic
the real
memory.
one and was the fiction one, the invented one, because it goes to the body.
Yes, I think that there's a really important bodily dimension, and I wonder if people who read your novels take on the memories, your memories in a way, as they read.
Sorry.
If other people can take on your memories as they read your novels.
Yes. And usually the best letters that I received is about this, you tell my stories.
Yes.
We don't know each other, but you're telling my stories.
Yes.
And this is, great thing.
Could you tell us about the Bulgarian concept of taga?
Oh, thank you. Taga is sorrow. So it's in the physics of sorrow, I described this, but actually there is a kind of phonetic of taga. You said that in a perfect way. Could you say taga? Let's try this. Taga. Taga. Look, when you're saying taga, your Adam apple is moving a bit. And I think it's very important, this phonetic of the taga, because in Bulgarian case, taga is connected with the things that we swallow, that we didn't want, or we couldn't tell aloud. You just swallow this taga. And also this is a very typical Bulgarian vocal, and this guttural g is also very important. So you have this, the taga is connected with the things that never happened, with the places that you never visited, and with the stories you are not allowed to tell. So this is not only for the Bulgarian taga, I think it's a universal, but especially for Bulgaria kind of taga is very important.
You describe Taga as a dream of something lost forever or never achieved, a kind of second-order melancholy, sorrow over the loss of something that has never been possessed. And so I think there's a kind of profound absence that motivates this idea, and also I think a lot of your writing. And again, like that's what memory is always an attempt, right?
The absence and the silence. I think for the memory, the absence and the silence are very important. They are destroyers of the memory, of course, but in the totalitarian societies, we had this culture of silence, especially in Bulgaria. It's a mixture between the patriarchal issues and also the fear from the secret services, let's say. So we had this culture of silence, this culture of absence in a way, and which lead us to the specific kind of schizophrenia, because in our homes we could talk in one way, but going in the public spaces we know that we should switch our way of thinking and talking. It was during the communist time, so it's a kind of schizophrenia we inherited from these times. And also a memory, because we're talking about memory, but memory in the bodies. I remember clearly on the 1 week before 1989, 10th of November, when the wall fell, we had the first protest in Bulgaria. I was 21, and I realized, I took part in this, but I realized how we don't have memory of the protest. I think our bodies didn't know how to walk when you are on the protest. We had memory only from manifestations, but this is quite different movement. So we were like this, can I show? So we are going like this, and we make this victory sign only on like this, not like, okay, no, your memory is not open, it's not brave enough, you don't have this memory of the protest. So this is also a question of body, the memory.
And I think you also describe in the story Smuggler the way that when you were young, you had lexicons, which were a special kind of notebook that you circulated. Could you, because to me also that's a moment where you are using writing as a form of resistance, and you're doing this sort of switching between different registers. Could you explain a little bit about that? Because I think that that might have shaped in some ways your relationship to writing and resistance.
Yeah. Writing and resistance.
Well, the lexicons. Tell them about explain the lexicons, because it's so interesting.
Especially.
Yes.
Yeah. I had a part of my doctoral thesis is about the old new media like radio, advertisement, and cinema, but also about such trivial things like lexicons. I don't know if maybe some of you have this memory about the lexicons, the albums, which we shared in the school. It's a small notebook, but it's a secret notebook in which you could share this notebook among your classmates, and you have there questionnaire. It's a questionnaire. These questions are the questions that were important for you, but that institutions and the school never asked you about this. The questions were like, do you believe in the love? Have you ever kissed boy or girl? But also, in which country would you like to live? Which was a quite forbidden, dangerous question, because in official answers, we knew. This is a schizophrenia that I try to explain. If my teacher asked me in which country you would like to live or to visit, I should say Soviet Union, GDR, Czech Republic. But in these lexicons, the answer goes like this. Italy. Everybody of us, I don't know why, love to live in Italy. United States. and Greece, and so on and so on. I mean, this lexicon is very important because we have, for me, it's important for two reasons. First, because we have the real picture of what the young people, pioneers during the socialist time really dreamed of. And the second, because it's a part of the unwritten, at least in Bulgaria, history of childhood. Mm-hmm. I really like to deal with this history of childhood and to try to explain our past through the children's point of view, because children are always, what to say, they're on the second, on the hidden room. And this is about the lexicons. They're a really good source for exploration, for searching of this hidden past.
Absolutely, and also I think that they must be aspirational as well, that it shows what you aspire to and what the hopes and dreams were, and so maybe also it was a way to connect writing to the idea of a future, a different future, that you could imagine into existence something that doesn't actually exist in the present for you.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm not good with the future. As I said, my stories are in the past or in the present. Yeah. I don't like future. Future is quite an empty room. There are no faces, no smells, no stories there. But anyway, if you write a book or if you write your research, you believe in the future. Because you believe that you will finish your book and there will be someone who will read your book. Mm-hmm. So this is, what to say,
you're imagining a reader.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is something which is rooted into the future. And in a way, we have the problem with the future now. It's clear, yeah. We have a kind of deficit of the future. If you ask me 30 years ago about the future, I would be much more optimistic. I mean, we had a lot of future in our past, as I said. But now, there is this really serious deficit of the future. So, in a way, we need to invent a bit the future.
Well, you know, this event this evening is called The Power of Stories. What can literature do in times like these, when we look around and everything seems so, certainly from the United States perspective, seems so hopeless? What can literature do for us in times like these?
Yeah. As I said, it's especially important like now. And I believe I don't believe in the future of the world, but I believe in the future of the literature who could try to save the world. What can do? As I said, to give a meaning is very important, but also another very important issue is connected with the storytelling and empathy. We know that if I ask you about the stories of your children, your mother, if you tell me about them, it will be very difficult for me, even if I hated you, to make something wrong with you, if I'm a normal person. Yeah. So this is the simple miracle of the storytelling. It creates empathy, and in this way, it postpones the end of the world. Because without this, literature is kind of antidote of the propaganda, because propaganda loves to polarize the people, to create a hate between them. Literature tries to console them and to ask for the personal stories. You can't kill the person with stories you just heard.
I love that. I mean, and it builds a bridge, a sense of ethical connection in some way to the other person. How in your account, how do you understand the way that storytelling produces empathy? What is it about the act of storytelling that produces empathy?
I think every story can produce an empathy, because it gives a meaning. It gives a meaning. Without story, this glass of water, let's say, is just a glass of water. Without a story, without the stories that we exchange this hour, it will be just a kind of event that we will forget after that. But also there is something else. Usually we have this anthropocentric memory and anthropocentric way of storytelling. My character tried in The Physics of Sorrow to change this, to create a kind of environmental empathy. Because it's easy to have empathy to the person. Not easy, but okay, you can do it. But how to have empathy to the fly, how to have empathy to the ginkgo biloba, or to the cherry tree. And that's why it's the project of the Gauss team was, how about if we retell the classic stories that we know from the point of view of the animal. Let's say, you know this beautiful, great story by Hemingway, The Older Man and the Fish, and the Sea.
Amazing.
It's about this fish. I forgot what was the kind, what kind of the fish it was. But anyway, it's about the fighting of the old man with this fish, which at the end of the story is completely dead, and only bones survived. So, and we, in a way, we have empathy with the old man, but why we don't empathy to the fish? Because the real person, let's say, that is dying at the end of the story is the fish. So, yeah, the literature, and this is another superpower, could change a point of view. Sometimes it's enough to develop empathy.
So it's really about perspective. It's about changing your perspective.
Yes, it's very important. And to come back to the beginning of our talk, childhood is also a question of perspective. When you're a child, you are tall like 1 meter and 20 centimeters. And we should try to remember how the world looks if you watch it through 1 meter and 20 centimeters, when you are tall as the tulips in the garden, when you are close to the home, to the battles, and everything. Once I asked my students, I had asking to them to write about their first fear in the childhood. And in the beginning they were like this, okay, it's so personal. They were 21 years old, so childhood was so close that it was so far away from them. And I asked them just to sit down like this. And then you have this perspective. This is quite different perspectives from like this. And this is the first step, just to go back to your childhood.
To literally change your perspective.
It's a question of body, of the height, of the measurement, and so on and so on.
And that worked.
Yeah. And just to finish, literature, as we start, it's a very good cure against our fears. And I will tell this story. When I was a boy, I used to live, as I said, with my grandparents, even with my grandgrandma, and I had a strong headache. And I started to cry, Grandma, I will die, I will die. And she consoled me in this way. It's a typical Bulgarian way of consolation, a bit dark. She told me, you will not die now, my boy. First, I will die. Then your grandparents will die. Then your parents will die. And then you will die. And now, when I'm thinking about it, it's a very, what to say, there is a strong logic in this. There is an order. And this is the right thing.
Right. the generational buffer. Yeah. I guess this is kind of connected, and this will be our last question. You described the life-saving potential of stories. What do you understand as how do stories save us, especially again now when we're facing crises, environmental crises, political crises? How can stories help us navigate this complicated and complex present? How can they literally save lives?
You know why people read their horoscopes? People love to read their horoscopes because they need to know that there is a constellation of the stars that take care about them. That what you are doing is not just a trivial, gestures and trivial way of living, but there is something beyond this. There is an idea. Mm-hmm. And so the same with literature and with storytelling. Without story, you are just, what to say, a kind of living creature, but you are not a person, you are not somebody with story. Mm-hmm. Without stories, nothing is meaningful and important. And this is maybe the main power of the stories.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can I make a picture?
On behalf of the Memory Studies Association, we'd like to present you with a little gift. Yes.
As Georgi Gospodinov and Professor Alison Landsberg framed it, beyond crisis, up to the stars. Thank you very much for spending your time with us and sharing. And my thanks should go also to those who facilitated this incredible meeting. And this is the Czech Centers who introduced me to their colleagues from the Bulgarian Cultural Institute. And, this encountering was the very beginning of the storytelling Georgi shared with us tonight. Many thanks to both of the institutions who did a wonderful job of bringing and persuading Georgi to share the evening with us. With that, we are coming to the last but not least part of our evening, and this is the first book award provided by the Memory Studies Association. This will be inaugurated by Professor Daniel Levy, and I would like to welcome him on the stage.
Thank you all. I don't know how to follow this amazing conversation and all these insights. I don't know in what temporality I'm right now, thanks to you. I just want to say a word about this award. It is very much part of the mission of the MSA to support junior scholars or scholars who write their first monograph. So this is a prize for memory scholars or scholars who deal with memory, and it is their first award. We give it out every year for the last 2 years. Having said that, before I announce the winner, I'd like to tell you that we received 35 submissions. It was read by a very large group of jurors, and out of those, we picked 3 books. 2 of them I want to mention here because they got honorable mentions. One is by Hajar Jazdia, The Struggle for the People's King, How Politics Transform the Memory of Civil Rights Movements. I'm not going to go into why Hajar couldn't come here. You can maybe surmise that. And the second honorable mention went to Katrin Antweiler for her book, Memorializing the Holocaust in Human Rights Museums. So, having said that, it is a privilege and a pleasure to present this year's MSA First Book Award to Dr. David Mwambari for his remarkable and timely work, Navigating Cultural Memory, Commemoration and Narrative in post-genocide Rwanda. Professor Mwambari is an associate professor in the Faculty of Social Sciences at Katholieke University Leuven in Belgium. He's the principal investigator for European Research Council-funded project on live narratives of violence among refugees who are transiting or have settled in 6 countries. He's a core faculty and a board member at the Oxford Consortium on Human Rights, University of Oxford, and at the Center for Mediation in Africa at the University of Pretoria. His book, Navigating Cultural Memory, is an exemplar of grounded and generative scholarship. Drawing on extensive fieldwork in the African Great Lakes region, Dr. Mwambari offers a rich and methodologically innovative analysis of how cultural memory is produced, circulated, and politicized, both within and beyond formal institutions. What distinguishes this work is its attention to the agency of those who are too often excluded from dominant memory frameworks, survivors, local actors, and youth engaged in grassroots memorial practices. With extraordinary sensitivity, he shows how memory in post-conflict societies is not simply about commemorating the past, but about shaping the terms of civic belonging and future possibility. This book invites us to think critically about whose stories are elevated, whose are silenced, and how memory practices can both reinforce and resist structures of injustice. Navigating Cultural Memory makes a vital contribution not only to memory studies and transitional justice, but also to decolonial theory and African studies. Dr. Mwambari challenges us to look beyond Eurocentric templates and to learn from the vernacular, the local, and the contested. In doing so, he offers a truly global and pluralistic vision of memory work, one that is as intellectually rigorous as it is, unfortunately, politically necessary. For its originality, moral urgency, and deep contribution to scholarship and practice, we are honored to recognize Navigating Cultural Memory as this year's recipient in the Book Award. Please join me in congratulating Dr. David Mwambari.
Good evening. May I first acknowledge those who are on the stage and those who have shared the stage this evening. And before I say my thank yous, I would like to invite all of you to join me in delivering these grateful words that I'm going to mention a few people. And for you to join me, for those who want, whenever I say Ashe, you can say Ashe, Ashe. This comes from many African traditional ways of telling stories that allows for a call and a response so that the people you're with, you are in dialogue with them. So it's a minimal way that you can join me, if you may. So all protocols observed. Distinguished colleagues gathered here tonight. They did say short speech on the program. And since I stand between you and your dinner, let's do this in 3.5 minutes. Ashe, ashe. You are excellent. Life is full of surprises, and this MSA First Book Award is truly one of the books. Our ancestor, Toni Morrison, once said, if there is a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. I wanted to read and thus to write this book. Today, I first thank some colleagues who created intellectual pathways to this moment. Ashe, ashe. Michael Rothbard, who argued already back in his chapter in 2013 that memory studies, and I paraphrase, has historically neglected post-colonial methodologies, narratives, memories, theories, and histories of Global South. Ashe, ashe. See also the argument that Sir Kiru Adebayo makes in his book, Continuous Past. Thanks also goes to Jeffrey Olick, Aline Sirp, and Jenny Wustenberg, forgive my pronunciation, who wrote also 10 years later in their 2023 piece on taking stock of memory studies, that the future of memory studies was taking diversity of ideas seriously. And of course, this was confirmed by Astrid L. brilliant opening speech a couple of days ago. This is the ambition that has been articulated by these academics. And so I stand here in the company of many papers, books, and panels in this conference in Prague that theorized and took seriously Global South stories. The field of memory studies is still largely indebted to Eurocentric frameworks, but we can choose to see, feel, and be part of the necessary changes despite the discomfort that might accompany the process of change in our community of this young field of memory studies. Ashe, ashe. The nominated books, and indeed this book prize, feels like an important recognition that this global intellectual work is necessary and timely. With this book, I try to contribute to a larger project to bringing the colonial perspective to the heart of memory studies. Ashe, ashe. I am thankful to T. Anderson, Rura Misai, Charumbira, Daniel Levy, book reviewers for commenting on the book, and to the person who nominated this book, thanks for taking the risk. I am deeply grateful to the award committee for recognizing this book. Ashe, ashe. My deepest thanks goes to Oxford University Press series editor, Professor Mark Freeman, my editor, Haley Singer of OUP, the anonymous peer reviewers who patiently supported this project over more than 5 years, and if you did peer review it, you gave me a hard time, and thank you very much. Ashe, ashe. So as I mentioned in the acknowledgement, I abandoned this book 3 times due to the sensitivities of the topic and global shifts that affected how we think about master narratives and hegemonic narratives. But thanks to the encouragement of many mentors, Catherine Newberry, Fumi Olenishakin, Godwin Murunga, Professor Paul Zeleza, Molly Andrews, and the ABC team, I kept going. Ashe, ashe. To the committees in Kenya, the US, Australia, Belgium, who granted scholarships, government that offered me visas and research support, thank you, wherever you are. People from Global South can feel that. I began this journey as a self-sponsored student, at times a displaced person, and all this support made this work possible and this moment possible. Ashe, ashe. As I conclude, I am very grateful to the European Research Council and Kai Leuven University for funding my current project, which allows me to live my purpose and be of service to my students, to the communities I research, to the scientific communities I belong, and to society more broadly. I warmly congratulate my fellow nominees. I have tried to read, and I'm continuing to read, the outstanding books that were nominated, and I encourage everyone here to include them in your classes and scholarship. Ashe, ashe. May Agachiro, the dignity and relational-centered approach I promote in the book's conclusion, inspire our scholarship, empathy, and commitment to human advancement of science in MSA and beyond. As the Swahili say, asante sana, wishing you all a wonderful evening. Ashe, ashe. Thank you.
Thank you, David. On behalf of the MSA, I would like to give you this certificate, and this, as a token of appreciation, we need to bring material culture back in for how we remember things. Thank you, David.
To the winner, and many thanks to all of you for creating this wonderful atmosphere in these beautiful settings. But as it was said many times during the evening, what we need to remember it is speaking about it, creating stories, and making memories. For that, I would like to invite all of us to a shared evening which will take place outside of this room, but in this very venue. Please enjoy and join us for those conversations, storytellings, and memory makings. Thank you.